March 2015 in 60 seconds. Well, Clarkson was sacked from that Top Gear show. Zayn left One Direction. Oh no! Petitions galore. Keith Clarkson instated. Unlucky for them, it turned out to be ill-fated. Glastonbury confirmed. Headliner Kanye West. A petition for his removal organisers must digest. Another plane crash, and the reason it was tragic. Terry Pratchett passed, he'll no longer spread his magic. Progress in Slovenia. If you're gay now, you can wed. Hopefully this tolerance through Eastern Europe it will spread. FA Cup semi-finals, Reading did reach. Yeah, I know, but it's big news for me, okay, so don't preach. Ireland somehow legalised drugs for one day. Even the president had nothing to say. For 24 hours, you could take whatever, but you could still be arrested, so really not very clever. What else happened this month? Well, we reburied a king that had been dead for hundreds of years. So bizarrely British through and through. Anyway, that's the end of the wrap. Until April, shoo! Hello, it's Johnny Borrows here with another podcast. This time, I'm going to review March, because that's the month that's just happened.
Here's Johnny.
Hello, my name is Johnny.
Johnny.
Johnny?
Oh, Johnny. Oh, Johnny.
It's that time of year on the run up to the general election where politicians offer the world. Labour will reduce student tuition fees, apparently, and the Conservatives will apparently open more free schools. I don't know what the other parties have promised, but does it really matter? No, it doesn't. The yearly budget also took place this month with a big shock, as the Conservatives' budget proved to be great news for the rich and terrible news for the weak and vulnerable. It's not like the Conservatives to act like that at all now, is it? Aside from the budget, there have been a number of other votes this month which have attracted far more attention than the general election. A petition set up this month calling for self-proclaimed voice of a generation, but in fact childlike douchebag Kanye West to be cancelled from the Glastonbury lineup this year has reached over 90,000 signatures. And what about that petition set up asking people to vote for Alan Partridge to be the new presenter of Top Gear following Jeremy Clarkson's sacking? I'll be honest with you, for a number of years I have wondered what would be the tipping point for the BBC before they have enough of the grumpy, backward-thinking petrolhead. Apparently insulting entire nations of people is absolutely fine, just don't for the love of God mention religion. But it would appear the tipping point is punching a producer. Yeah. Kind of seems fair, really, doesn't it? Now, I admit that Clarkson is a dinosaur and probably not the nicest person to know, but I kind of like him, if only for the simple fact that he sticks up for saying whatever he wants on TV. And shouldn't you be able to say what you want about what you want? I mean, freedom of speech and all that? Well, yes, but also there's a very good reason why not as well. Screw the World Service, the BBC's ambassador abroad is Top Gear. So it's probably not okay to start picking off nations and cultures one by one like a sniper when you are representing your fine organisation around the world. The petition for Steve Coogan's fictional broadcaster Alan Partridge has had a surprising number of votes and has gained national interest. It is unlikely that Steve Coogan's character, Alan Partridge, will become the next presenter of Top Gear because of the comments Steve made in 2011 regarding Clarkson's comments about Mexicans. Did you hear? I'm not going to repeat them, so, just look it up if you want to. Also, there's another reason it wouldn't work, would it? Let's be honest. I mean, come on, seriously, just think about it. Alan Partridge on Top Gear just wouldn't work. Clarkson's sacking divided opinions, many arguing he was a fantastic presenter and Top Gear will die a death without him. And let's be honest, they do have a point. The chemistry between Clarkson, May and Hammond is unmatched on TV, and with Top Gear generating £50 million a year in revenue for the BBC, they're going to be hit hard by this. Not even the petition to save Clarkson could save him, although it was driven to BBC headquarters in a tank. A tank, for God's sake! If there is ever a way to not get your opinion listened to or validated, it's threatening the people you are asking for help from. Morons! Though, through all of this, the BBC have, let's be honest, made the right decision. If you went into work tomorrow and punched a colleague, you would be sacked. Well, unless you're a wrestler or something. So why should this be any different? It shouldn't. In light of the fact there is no current suitable replacement for Clarkson, I thought I would create my demo for being the next Top Gear presenter. Hello, I'm Johnny Borrows, and I'm the new presenter of Top Gear Man Stuff. On tonight's show, I say something that's politically not okay. We go on a road trip and generally offend everyone we meet. And I do something else because, let's be honest, the show is all about me. I'm going to review this car that you're never going to be able to afford in this slickly produced video paid for by you, the taxpayer. I'm going to use man words like horsepower, speed, and torque. On next week's show, we'll be discussing, would cars be better with 5 wheels? On the topic of leaving things, the big news to affect everyone, that is unless you're not a prepubescent teenage girl, is Zayn leaving One Direction. Oh no! Yes, after 5 years, one of them have left, leaving only 4 talentless douchebags. Teenage girls around the globe took to social media to air their deeply concerning erratic opinions about him leaving, in what could be a game show called How Quickly Can I Get Sectioned? Maybe Clarkson could get in on the action there. Just a thought. Zayn left saying only that it was time to move on, or in another direction. After the death of legend Leonard Nimoy, Canada asked its citizens to stop defacing their banknotes, which has seen former Prime Minister Wilfrid Laurier turned into Spock. But the man is a complete legend. I mean, he was Spock, for God's sake. Oh yeah, he also made this song as well. So if it is inappropriate to deface a banknote with the face of Spock, is it ever okay to deface a banknote? And if so, what face is it okay to deface a banknote with? To tell me if it's okay, and if so, who, and why, it's Tim.
It's okay to deface any banknote because they're very, very boring and we've had them for a long time. I think it's the people, shouting at the top and saying we've had enough of this rubbish stuff. We want some new people on these banknotes. I would like someone like Barbara Windsor.
Okay, why Barbara Windsor?
Well, not now, but when she was in the Carry On film. When she was good looking.
When she was basically had her bra coming off. That's what you want to see, isn't it?
Well,
you
I
dirty
think
man.
people... Or we could have Philip Schofield on there because he's a legend and he presents The Cube, which is great.
But if we start getting people like Barbara Windsor and Philip Schofield on the banknotes, are people going to continue defacing it?
Maybe not. People might miss the Queen a bit, so you could make Philip Schofield into the Queen.
So you're saying deface the banknote with Philip Schofield on and turn it into the Queen?
Yes, because people don't like the Queen being defaced, but surely people wouldn't mind Philip Schofield being defaced.
The real question is, Tim, should Philip Schofield become Queen?
I'm not too sure whether he has royal blood, and he's a man, so...
Well, you could have a sex change, I suppose.
Yes, and a blood transfusion of royal blood.
Right, well, thank you, Tim, for joining me today and discussing quite in depth about whether or not it's okay to deface banknotes.
Oh, no, thank you very much. It's been mind expansive.
Expensive?
No, mind expansive.
I'm sure you said expensive there.
No, I have enough money, thank you very much.
Go away.
Can I have some money? Hello, mate? You there? Hello?
He somehow has his own podcast. You're listening to Johnny Borrows.
At the beginning of March, there was a show called DrugsLive, a show apparently so important it had to scream its hashtag at you. It was hosted by male blow-up doll lookalike Dr. Christian Jessen, who, much like Jeremy Kyle, is famous for exploiting the misery of others. And Jon Snow, that's the news presenter, not the character from Game of Thrones. Why Jon Snow from Game of Thrones would be on DrugsLive, I have no idea. Why did you even bring it up? Stop talking about Game of Thrones, that's next month. Don't get ahead of yourself. Jeez. The show sought to discover whether cannabis should be legalised and claimed to be the first test in the world to test the comparison between skunk and hash on the brain. The test included 20 volunteers over a 2-year process. During the trial, volunteers visited the location of the experiment 3 times, each time inhaling some cannabis, but didn't know what they were smoking. It was either skunk, hash or a placebo. They then had a whole load of tests done on them, in and outside of an MRI scanner. The tests were compared, and there you go, hey presto. Jon Snow himself took part in the tests, videos of which went viral online before the show, angering many with his extremely negative portrayal of the effects, with Jon Snow saying he felt as though his soul had been ripped from him. But I mean, seriously, what do you expect? You give a 67-year-old man skunk and then put him in an MRI scanner? I mean, damn, put me in an MRI scanner, sober, and I will start blubbering like a little girl. Jon Snow and Dr. Christian shared the presenting between them, with Jon Snow doing the newsy factual stuff and scientific bits, and Dr. Christian did all the chatty gossipy stuff, talking to celebs in the studio and to the audience in the studio. Now, speaking to an audience member is always risky, because you have no idea what they're going to say and whether they will freeze on camera or not. Jenny Bond took part in these tests as well, and even she said something completely weird and odd when Dr. Christian chatted to her.
It made me very relaxed, it expanded time.
Or maybe after a quick puff, she has turned into a hippie. If Jenny Bond couldn't speak properly, what chance did the audience have? I'm pretty sure the first audience member that Dr. Christian spoke to was actually stoned, judging by the fact he had no idea he was being spoken to.
Tell me, what is it then about music, you said that...
Oh, me?
Yes, when
hello.
you're...
In fact, a lot of people in the audience seemed happy to commit professional suicide by revealing on primetime TV to all of their employers that they take illegal drugs. One guy said that he'd been smoking it for 20 years. Another even admitted that he had been a ruddy dealer. As with every documentary on cannabis I have ever seen, there was a hard-hitting, dramatic, autobiographic story about some poor sod who's gone batshit crazy on the stuff. You see these in every single documentary made on the effects of cannabis, and unfortunately this one was exactly the same as the rest of them. They are all made in the same way and always fail to truly tell the story of the emotional claustrophobia sufferers of schizophrenia experience. Instead, they always tend to glamorise the oddness of the disease and the criminal life the person may have taken. They always use those quick in and out zooms of the person's face while they talk about how miserable their life is, like they used to do on Jeremy Springer. Do you remember that? With crack addicts boasting about what car they stole. But instead it's some stoner talking about the chicken madras they stole from Waitrose. On the negative side of the debate, there were a lot of guests on the show who wanted to talk about the harms of cannabis and why it shouldn't be legalised. Interestingly though, all of those who spoke out against the drug spoke with fear of the unknown, with no basis on fact. One ex-chief superintendent's reason why we shouldn't legalise cannabis is, and I quote, youths on an estate. He didn't really seem to divulge into what he meant by youths on an estate, but just kept saying it randomly as though he had Tourette's and that sentence was his tick. On the pro-cannabis legalisation debate, however, all those speaking had facts and figures to argue their debate, and the entire overriding opinion of the show could be summed up with this police officer's opinion.
He pointed out that there's around 300,000 cannabis growers in this country. Well, there's only 150,000 police officers, so that means that there's 2 cannabis factories for every police officer.
Right.
So the idea that you can actually stop it, I find quite frankly ridiculous.
I was surprised by the documentary, to be honest. It got the facts right. It was honest, unbiased, and explained everything well. Although whilst being extremely factual throughout, it couldn't seem to shake off its naive approach. Maybe because Dr. Christian kept asking those at home to tell us what we think about everything. Less about what I think, mate. I don't give a damn about Steve from Grimsby. I want to hear about the professionals, what they have to say. It could be that, or maybe it's because those who presented the show have about as much knowledge on cannabis and drugs as Michael Owen has on football. Much like an inquisitive child that keeps forgetting stuff, John and Christian seem to be amazed constantly by everything, and I'm sure the word profound was used about 8 times. Importantly for me, the show ended on the topic of education, which is one of the most important arguments in the legalisation of cannabis or any drug. To explain what I mean, I'm afraid I'm going to have to get a little bit serious on you. Don't worry, I've got a hilarious story to tell you about in a minute. I have smoked weed in the past. I first smoked it when I was 16. 2 years prior to that, I despised the idea of the stuff. Drugs was like the worst obscenity you could whisper. But then I saw people on it, and they looked like normal people, like you and me, and I was like, well, where's the reefer madness? I was an inquisitive teenager and home educated at the time, meaning I could learn about what interested me. What interested me at this point was, what was this drug and what was it doing to my friends? The point is, the first time I smoked it, unlike most people, I knew what I was smoking, what it was going to do to me and why. It didn't make me paranoid because I knew what I was smoking and was confident I was able to do what I needed to do when I was in the process of being stoned. But, as I say that, if I'm honest, I know far more about the drug now, and I'm much older, and I wish I had the proper education when I first tried it. My point is, the vast majority of people who take drugs don't truly understand the effect it will have on their brain and body. And if you've never taken drugs, chances are you don't know a goddamn thing. Regardless of whether you have or haven't smoked weed, or whether you agree with the legalisation or not, the simple fact is that teenagers are going to smoke it. If you are a parent of a teenager, chances are either your child has smoked weed or they know someone who has. This said, isn't it vital that young people are given the facts about drugs? What they actually do to your brain, how they change who you are and why? We have education in schools, but all it does is teach that it's illegal, it will mess you up. This is legal, so it's fine. Go ahead and do it. I mean, don't tell me weed will make me paranoid. Tell me why it can cause some people to have a paranoid reactions and others to not. Tell me the science behind it. With the right education, we can give young people the ability to make their own, thought-out, rational decisions on whether to try cannabis or take any other drugs. Oh, right, sorry. That was a bit deep. On the topic of drugs, did you hear what happened in Ireland this month?
The government in Ireland had a little bit of a screw-up that basically led to the legalization of hard drugs, including MDMA and crystal meth.
Yes, like the political equivalent of one of the Hangover movies, somehow Ireland managed to legalise a whole range of drugs after amendments to the Misuse of Drugs Act managed to legally allow the use of a whole load of illegal drugs. When spotted, this was instantly changed. However, it takes 24 hours for any change to become the law, meaning that Ireland had a 24-hour free-for-all, meaning if you wanted to, you could head down to your local police station and do a whole load of ecstasy. Why the hell you would want to do that, though, I have no idea. Irish politicians were rightfully embarrassed and were eager to remind the Irish public that they shouldn't take drugs and that cannabis and heroin were still illegal. They decided to skim over the fact that crystal meth was legal. Online articles popped up all over the place, shoving pictures of Class A drugs in your face and giving details information about the drugs you could take, while at the same time telling you that you shouldn't do it. Let's be honest, okay? Even if you were in Ireland and you saw this article and you went out and did some drugs in public, you could still be arrested for public disorder. You can legally be kept in custody for 24 hours. When those 24 hours are up, the drugs you did will be illegal again, and therefore you could be prosecuted for it. So really, they're not really legal, are they? Even more amusingly, amendments to a number of other bills highlighted that in fact straight heterosexual marriage could be illegal. The government, already with its tail between its legs, were forced to change the Irish language version of a same-sex marriage referendum because it posed a legal grey area in the terms of heterosexual marriage. That was, as you can imagine, rather hushed up, which was easily done as everyone was blabbering about which Class A drugs they could and wouldn't actually take. The Prime Minister of Ireland only had the following to say about the matter. Lessons could be learned about this in the future. Maybe you could proofread what you've written. If I can proofread this podcast, you can damn well proofread a legally binding contract. That's it for another podcast. That was March, or well, some of it anyway. Go show me some love and follow me on Twitter. I'm at Johnny Borrows. That's JONNYBORROWS. Or like me on Facebook. Facebook.com/The Johnny Borrows. I'll be back in a month to express my cynical opinions about April. Until then, go and involve yourself in some stuff. Maybe I'll review it next month. Bye.